Carolina, or NCAT, Beginning Teacher of the Year. So we had districts and charter schools across the state nominate somebody who had successfully completed their first year of teaching, and the regions in the state narrowed down to 3 per region and 3 charters. And they're all here, the 28 of them, for a week of professional development on leadership, and then competing for tomorrow night's title for Beginning Teacher of the Year. So it's really exciting. We're just so pleased.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I cried twice yesterday and thinking about, you know what, I can retire later on in a couple of years and we're in good hands.
Yeah,
we are in good hands, folks.
Yeah, I called Steve last night and talked with him. We had a little LS business, and that's exactly what he said. He felt so good, said he was tired, from the trip, and that he'd had to get up so early to get there, but said that he had been really energized by the people that were there. And so I told him before he left, he looked tired and run. I told him he looked like a before picture when he left. He was. He said, the before picture of what? I said, I don't know, hair loss, hemorrhoids, heartbreak of psoriasis. He wasn't looking too good when he left.
Well, once he found out we had Diet Mountain Dew, he was good to
go. Yeah, I dropped him off a 6-pack for the trip. So.
Well, then that does not explain why he had 4 more while he was here today.
Yeah. I have to take 2 6-packs for every day of the weekend when we teach. He drinks 12 a day. He buys them by the 2 liter and brings those in and drinks a whole 2 liter, just like I'd drink a 16-ounce one. I don't know. And he can't figure out why he has to go to the bathroom all the time.
I know, that's what I told him.
No, nobody ever accused him of being the smartest, but that's great. And so to echo that today, one of the things that I make sure that I do or try to do every semester, I go to the teacher ed candidates at Gardner-Webb. You go through 2 years of core, and then you have to go through a year of classes, and then at the end of your 3rd year of classes, you have to apply and interview to student teach. And we had one of those. We had those interviews started today, and I did that this afternoon. I'm gonna do it again tomorrow afternoon. And we had just the most wonderful young lady today from Gaston County. She started her first year at East Gaston, and then they opened Stuart Kramer, and she graduated from there. But what a nice young lady she was. But yeah, there's a lot of good young people who are very dedicated, somewhat idealistic, but that's a good thing. Everybody doesn't need to be old and cynical like me. I mean, there's a lot of good young people out there. This past spring, we graduated 9 at Gardner-Webb. I'm ashamed that we only graduated 9 in elementary ed, but those 9 young ladies were just tops. They were just special. So we're putting some good people out there, and there's some good people out there. And we certainly need them to be in our business. Well, I've got the record on, and thank you for being with us tonight. And so I want to start with our weekly schedule as we always do. And oh, by the way, the good news is I guess tonight's our last night, isn't it? We don't have to meet next week. Next week was optional. Grades are due next Wednesday morning, so I guess tonight will be our last night. I've appreciated y'all being with us this semester. We appreciate you choosing Gardner-Webb Must, and so I've had a great time. So let's look at where we are this week. You need to be about ready to submit your OMA final. Most of you already have, but if you're not, try to get that done. You've got until next Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. to get all your work in. I know I told you earlier in the week everything's due Monday the 9th, but I'll extend that to Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock when final grades are due, if that'll help anybody. I prefer you have it all in on Monday, but the absolute deadline from the registrar, who is the queen of all things, is 9 a.m. Wednesday morning. After that, it's a no-go. So grades are due then. So try to get all your things in. And so this week you were to interview a school administrator and list the 5 most important steps in the school budgeting process. And most of you have done that. And what I responded back to you on that one is the takeaway is that no matter what you think those 5 things could be, and I could argue for 15 or 20 different things, the most important thing is that the budget as that base leg of the triangle, that budget supports your school improvement plan. That's the most important thing. So when you're doing your budget, at some point in that 5 steps, there's got to be some link back to our school improvement plan. And it could be look at last year's budget. It could be figure out what sources of funds you have. It could be any of those things. But at some point, you got to have a direction. You've got to have a strategic plan. That strategic plan is your school improvement plan. And so that budget has got to support that. And then the other one was locate your budget. Does it have all those different funds in it? Federal, state, local, and school funds. And the important part of that is know what money you have and what's allowable to spend that money on. People say, well, what about Title I is federal money? CTE is federal money. So my point in that is even within state funds or even federal funds, that doesn't mean you can spend them. I mean, there's different rules even with different federal funds. There's different rules with state funds. As we found out in the Leandro case, you can't manipulate state and federal funds. That's what the Leandro case was about. Is school districts wanted the state to manipulate or themselves to be able to manipulate that per pupil money that the state got them. And the state said, no, you can't do that. We've earmarked it for these things, and you've got to spend it on those things. You can't manipulate it. It goes to the students at that building. You can't take part of it and give to students at another building. And so there's rules on how all these different funds, you need to know what those rules are, what those codes are. And as I told you in my responses back to you on the discussion board, it's a really good thing if you've got a really adept financial secretary who can keep up with all the codes and know what monies can be spent on what. Now, my personal soapbox on the budget and spending and codes and all these things, the one thing that I really wish that we would discontinue as a practice financially in the school business is holding funds till the end of the year and then spending them, or we're going to lose them. If you got the money, why not spend it during the year and use it for the students that you have? This notion, we've got this money left and we've got to buy something with it. You got to get us a purchase order this week. How many times have you seen that happen? Teachers in classrooms get something from principal that says, we've got this money in the budget, and if we don't spend it, we're going to lose it. We won't get it back in next year's budget, and it comes out in April or May. Well, it won't show up till after school's out, whatever it is you ordered. I mean, that's kind of after the fact. I wish that we would make sure that if we know we're talking about, well, we saved it because we're afraid we might run out. Well, not if you could manage your budget effectively. You don't have to fall into that. We're going to wait to the end of the year and then whatever we have, then we'll spend it. No, spend it on the kids you got in the building now. There's no time like the present. So that's, if you know what funds you have and what they can be spent for, and you're really good at accounting for them, you don't have to wait to the end of the year and spend your money and then buy stuff that you may or may not need. And even if you need it, what about the kids all year long? That money's been there all year. What about them? Well, it's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like I followed a 29-year principal. He was 1 year at a school where I became principal. He'd been principal there 1 year. He'd been 28 years at another school, and they moved him there so he would retire. And he would come back quite often, and it was his idea that kids only needed a good teacher pretty much every other year, that a bad teacher was good for them. I'm like, I can't believe this, but that was in the era. We were moving to the era of accountability where nobody can have a bad teacher anytime. But he believed that, and that's kind of the notion is well, we'll spend this on next year's group of kids. It won't matter about it matters that every group of kids matters is the point. So those are the 2 discussion boards, and then the 2 for next week when you're on your own. Remember, classes go up until Tuesday, and so we won't meet on Wednesday, but you'll need to continue with your discussion boards. The case study was the teacher who was covering up the windows and people were telling him bad things were going on. That is a case of negligence, contributory negligence, foreseeability. People told you, you knew he covered up the reason, you knew kids were in there. A reasonable person standard, you'd know that something bad was going on. Law enforcement should have been brought in immediately. That principal would be sued and lose, as would the teacher. And then your district, you're to dig out your district policy on sexual harassment. And how would you respond with a 10th grade female student claiming sexual harassment by her male softball coach? Again, I would involve the police. That's one of those that most everybody says, well, it's just harassment. Wouldn't you just do the investigation on your own? No, I wouldn't. It's a sexual crime. Sexual harassment is a federal crime. The police will throw you under the bus because of the age and the particular nature of this one. In a public school setting, I still would get in touch with law enforcement. You need to follow through with them. I'd let them. Now, you would follow through with your own HR people, but I would not initiate this is one of those that people want to debate. I'm telling you, I would not initiate an investigation. This one is one of those that kind of trips people up. Well, she didn't claim that, a sexual assault of any sort. She just said it was sexual. It's still sexual in nature. I would involve the police in this one. I would not attempt to investigate this one. All right. And so there is that one. Let me get out of that and get back to where we were here. There is let's see, 13, 12. Okay, you've done your assessment inventories. I've been getting some really good ones of those. We talked about it last week or week before. Last week we did our case study. We talked about this one. And so I've had some more come in. One of the things I want to encourage you to do is to share those results with your school administration in a non-threatening way. I think we've been getting a lot of positive comments back from school administrators on those. I think that's a good thing to do. The other thing that I've neglected to do when I was with you last, and I put this in for a reason on facilities, and I apologize, I had this up and it went down on me. This is not Dale's opinion. I guess this was probably from research. These are the questions that teachers are asked in North Carolina on the Teacher Working Conditions Survey, and they have a companion set on the Advanced Ed Survey in South Carolina. For whatever reason, we can agree to disagree or agree or not agree. These are the things that you need to focus on as a school administrator in North or South Carolina in terms of facilities and resources. I know that you may not agree with it, but this is what you're going to be measured on. It's not too smart to know what's on the test and not prepare for it. And so if you don't think the Teacher Working Condition Survey isn't a principal evaluation or assistant principal evaluation tool, you're wrong. It counts in your evaluation. So these are the things that you're going to be evaluated on. I would pay particular attention to them. I'd probably have this list posted somewhere in my office as a reminder to me, along with my working copy of the school improvement plan of what's important every day. And so that's why I pull these up. Instructional materials tops the list. And there's a reason why. That's who we are. That's what we do. What they do at Jones Sausage, they make sausage. What do we do in school? We teach kids. Teachers need to have appropriate instructional materials. They need instructional technology, including computers, printers, software, and internet access. They need communication technology, including phones, faxes, and email. They need access to office equipment and supplies such as copy machines, paper, pen. They need a broad range of professional support personnel. They need for their environment to be clean and well maintained. They have space to work productively. The physical environment of the classroom in the school supports teaching and learning. And then they have reliable internet connections. These are, they're only 1/100th of all the things that you have to be worried about in terms of facilities and resources, but these are the most important. Not my opinion. This is what the state says. And the reason why the state says this is because this is what teachers have told them. I mean, the Teacher Working Conditions Survey is a works in progress. It was compiled over concerns that teachers had. They were the people who gave the input to design the survey. What's important to you? And this is what they said is important to them. So these are the 10 things that are important to teachers. So you got to pay a particular attention to these things. Your assessment inventory, you're looking at the entirety of the operation, the cameras, the parking, the bus loading and unloading, cords wrapped, chemicals up, all those things are important. But this is what you better be paying. That's for your safety checks. This is for instructional improvement and a focus on instruction. These are the things that you have to do for instruction. You do the assessment inventory for the fire marshal. You do this for teachers. I want to make sure that we all understand that. And some of the feedback that I get on the assessment inventory is, well, a lot of this stuff really doesn't matter to teachers on a day-to-day basis, and that's exactly right. That's not who we're satisfying with that. We're satisfying this fire marshal, and we're making sure that we're not negligent if something happens, and we're trying to keep kids safe. This is the document that speaks to supporting teachers and instruction in terms of facilities and resources. So this is the one that I would have this one. I'd have this one pinned on the cork board, or it would be under the glass on my desk. This would be the one that I would be looking at every day. What can I do, or what have I done, or what have we got to do to get this done? If we're going to truly support instruction. Again, it may have to be part of your budget. It may have to be part of your budget. A lot of these things on this list have a cost associated with them, but that's got to be factored into your budget as well. So I wanted to make sure that I remembered to cover that one with you and talk to you about the difference between that and the assessment inventory. They have two different purposes. Again, assessment inventory is for the fire marshal and safety. Teacher working conditions survey on facilities and resources is to support teachers and instruction. Two different reasons why we have them. Both important, but different purposes. All right. Let me make sure I've got that. All right. What's the future of public education? Charter schools and vouchers for private schools. I have a link to the charter school website in North Carolina. Regardless of how you think about charter schools, they're here to stay and what they do. Some of you work in charter schools, and that's fine. Audrey, one of our classmates, works at Eno River, seems to be a very nice place. One of my former master students is headmaster here in Cornelius at Pine Lake Prep, and his boss, one of the directors, it was one of my doctoral students, Kate Alice Dunaway. And I believe they run a fine school. Craig Smith, headmaster down at Lake Norman Charter. I trained him when he was assistant principal at Hopewell. I know a lot of the people in them. A lot of them came from public education, charter schools. A lot of good charter schools out there. If you don't know much about them, I have this website for you. It's basically a public-private partnership. It's funded by public dollars, but it's basically a private school. If you don't know about charter schools, you need to. And I have the link here. And then vouchers. Vouchers are state money to help parents pay for private education. That one is much more controversial. Um, those haven't gained much traction in the last 4 or 5 years. About 5 years ago, it looked like that was going to be the wave of the future. That has slowed down. And there are still some of those opportunity charters. Those opportunity vouchers out there. They're not a lot of money, and they have kind of gone the way of most all education funding. It's kind of on hold right now, but that's also a wave of the future as well. I've got some documents there if you want to read about that. I've got the charter school link. The other thing that I have here is my gift to you. You're not going to need it till semester after next, but you might want to look at this. This is the evidence template for the SIOP. You said, but Dale, you stopped giving us evidence. You won't get one for the skip and you won't get one for the cap. You can make your own, just like I made you the one for the OMA. But I do have one for the SIOP. Basically, it tells you what pieces and parts of the first 5 evidences that you complete. The SIOP is your school improvement plan. You take parts from the first 5 and create your school improvement plan. I have that evidence template here for you to tell you what parts of which of the first 5 evidences to pull. If you have that, it's just a copy and paste, and it's fairly simple. It doesn't take you that long to do it. Now, remember, when you get to 605, you've got to do 2 evidences your last semester. You're accustomed to doing 1. Now, you say, well, how can we get 2 if we've only been doing 1? The cap, you'll have to do it. The SIOP, again, is not any new work. It's just a copy and paste from the first 5. If you know where everything's at and you hadn't lost them, you ought to be able to, in an afternoon, to knock it out. Because it's very menu driven. So in truth, you really only have to do 1 evidence and then do a copy and paste on the other. And so all you need is to go to skip task 1, prompt 1, and copy it for your background description and setting. I tell you exactly where to go on each of these things, which parts, which sections to copy and paste. Now, you might have to add some linking narrative. I know you know what that means, but it tells you exactly where to go and pull each of the parts that you need. And how to do your references as usual. So you might want to take and download this and put this one in your toolbox, as we call it. This will help you when you get to 605. I want to make sure that you have it. Some students go ahead and look through that and start kind of building it along the way. The smarter ones do. And so hopefully you will do that. All right. Okay. I want to highlight this one more time. Sexual harassment presentation. This has become a big deal. This has become almost an everyday. Now, I'm not going to be a grumpy old man and say, well, it's just a sign of the times or whatever. And I'm not going to say what I hear is you can't judge people in the past by today's standards, or old people. Yeah, you can. Some things were always wrong. Some things it was wrong then, it's wrong now. Some of these behaviors that we continue to see in public arenas, they were never, say, well, 30 years, 20 years ago, 15, no, they were wrong then, they're wrong now. and you're going to have to deal with this almost on a, I won't say a weekly basis, but there won't be many months goes by in the school business um, that you don't have to deal with this. I've got this presentation for you. Um, I won't go through it all, but it has all the laws and regulations. It's under week 7. I would implore you to look at this again and make sure that you're aware of all the laws. See, this is federal law. And so when somebody says, well, that coach, the student said that he was sexually harassing her, why didn't you do because it's a violation of federal law, that's why. And I'm not a law enforcement official. I'm a school administrator. My license allows me to work in a public school and administrate there, not to carry a gun and be a law enforcement agent. I'm not interested in that line of work. I do what I do, they do what they do. But again, sexual harassment is a violation of federal law. It is illegal. It is a crime. And so I implore you, do not get caught up in the idea of, well, it's just harassment, it's just verbal, I'll look into that myself. No, I implore you, in this day and age, if you get this one wrong, this will end your career. I'm just going to tell you. There was a time previous to maybe 5 to 8 years ago, if a sexual crime occurred and you got it wrong, you lose your job. But maybe not on sexual. I'm telling you, times have changed. This is now the same as a sexual crime 10 years ago. If you get this wrong, you'll lose your job. I can't put it any other way. You got to get this right. I've got a really good, it lays out the background to all these things. It has some examples. It talks about the case that's in our book on 342. You need to go back and review this. You need to understand what it is, what the examples are, be able to detect it, so that you need to know the state statutes. You need to know, again, the North Carolina statute and what it means. Again, it's a violation of state law as well. And you need to understand what harassment can be based on. Not just sexual harassment, but other types as well. And so you need to go back and review this one. You've had these 2 books this semester. I don't go over the book. That's your professional responsibility, is to read the assignments in the book. I've tried to highlight the most important things. This is one of those most important things. You need to get this right. And that's enough on that. I want to go back and do a quick review of the most important things this semester. The first case study that we had this semester was Bobby. Now, people say, Dale, this seems like a overtly simple case. Why would you have something like grading as one of your case studies? I told you I go to the law seminar every other year or every third year, according to when they have it. They have it again this coming September. When the state of North Carolina, the General Assembly, Department of Public Instruction, and the North Carolina School Administrators Association, they jointly put on this law seminar at McKimmon Center, which is the adult and continuing ed facility just on NC State's campus. Well, it's actually out on Western Boulevard. It's on campus now. It wasn't when I was an undergraduate there, but it is now. And it's the biggest legal seminar on the East Coast every year, and it's standing room only, hard ticket to get. And they tell us every 2 to 3 years what the hottest cases are. Now, here's the thing. When I was a school principal, there wasn't many days, or I don't think there was any weeks that went by that I didn't get a complaint about grading. My job now with Gardner Webb, with 31 adjuncts and 3 full-time people and over 300 students, Guess what I get a complaint about most every day? Grading. Um, I rotated off the finance committee at Gardner Webb. Obviously, I teach law, policy, and finance, and so I went to the policy committee now. And guess what? I deal with appeals. Guess what I deal with every week? Appeals at Gardner Webb. Grades, grading policy every week. It's just like if the sun comes up tomorrow, there's going to be an issue with grading. There always is. And the point of the case study was know the law, know that you're responsible for it. That's why it comes to you. Know that you need to know what teachers are doing. You need to know what the syllabus says. You need to make sure they're following that grading policy, because you're going to get more complaints about grading than anything else other than discipline. It's going to be grading. How did you calculate that GPA? Why did my kid get this grade? Why did I get that grade? What was the policy? How was this calculated? It's a never-ending battle over grades. The takeaway from the Bobby case study is know that your responsibility, and make sure that that you have an established grading policy that teachers posted in their syllabus and that they are following. That's the important piece of how will Bobby strike out, because grading is our biggest issue. It's our biggest problem, non-discipline wise. Case study 2. Letter to the community, and we've already hit on this one tonight. Leandro said you can't manipulate that state money. It sounds like a great idea. It sounds like something everybody want to do, except the people who don't. What if you're at the school that's going to take the money from? Your kid's over there. They're not happy about that, and they will let you know. And so you can manipulate local money, but again, you got to worry about the politicians. Just like when Charlotte Mecklenburg designated $6 million back in the late 90s for the high school challenge for 3 high schools, $2 million apiece. It was so controversial. A gang of 4 ran and got on the county commission just to stop that local money from going to those 3 high schools. It won't be popular, even if it seems like the right thing to do. There'll be a group of people that it won't be popular with. But federal money cannot be manipulated. State money cannot be manipulated. That's what the Leandro case was about. Those come earmarked for how they're to be spent and who they're to be spent on, and you cannot alter that or modify or deviate from that. If you do, they'll find somebody else to do your job. That's what Leandro was about. Case study 3, modern problems. I told you 20-something years ago when I was a high school principal, I had a boy that wore a dress. He just had to wear one long as the girls, and everything was good. So when people talk about, oh, this just happened in the last, this is a teens, since 2010. No, this problem's been around a long time. And when I say this problem of how to accommodate everybody, not that the people themselves that need accommodations are the problem, but the problem is how do we provide accommodations for them, and how do we protect them and make sure that their rights are served as well as everybody else in the building. You can't let your personal feelings get in the way of it. The takeaway on this one is you should have stopped the public display of affection. That's what inflamed the community. Can't talk about other people's kids. If you deal with these things honestly, fairly, and squarely and up front, they still may blow up on you, but you got a chance to get out in front of them. If you do like this and allow these boys to get out of control and get the community inflamed, and then it's not going to go well for them. Heckler's veto. You can't threaten them with what might happen to them, and what you're saying to them is I'm protecting you by taking your rights away, but these people who are violating your rights, I'm letting them do that. That's what Heckler's veto is you can't punish somebody because somebody else might do something unlawful. And so we used to have a little case study that was from this book basically about, threatening. We've replaced it with this one, and the notion here is you got to get out in front of it. You need to get out and make sure that you make a safe environment and a prom that's safe for all students. But you got to be proactive. You can't sit around and wait for it to happen, because it will happen to you. And then, of course, our fourth case this semester was our inclusion model case. The takeaway from it is that you're going to get regular ed parents are going to complain about inclusion, especially if you're not using best practices, if you're just having the regular kids teach the other kids. The important part for the school administrators, know what's going on in the rooms. Make sure that you're in charge of and communicating what the expectation is and providing the staff development to make sure that happens. That's what's important. Again, this is a principle that it got away from, and instead of being proactive and being the leader, she delegated that to somebody else, and then it didn't go well. And part of what I've told you is that parents are going to come in and say some of the most. They'll start out by saying, "I'm not this," but then they'll say things that let you know they are that. But that still doesn't mean that they don't have the right to come in and do that. You still have to work through their issues and concerns. One of the things that we make a mistake is when people come in and do that, we're so offended by what they say, we don't listen to by the way they say it, the content of what they say. We have to be careful about that, that we listen and we hear what they're telling us, the issues and the problems are. But you got to be in the rooms. You got to know what's going on. You have to set the expectation of what you expect to happen in that room, and then you got to follow through with the staff development to make sure it is going to happen. I mean, me just telling you it's got to happen. If I don't train you how to do it, then I'd have no right to expect that you're going to do it. So that's what that case study was about. I've got some interview materials in here. Normally we do this at the I will do this with you in 605. I'll do a town hall on interviewing. When you get to that area, you can read through these things. I want to make sure that you understand. Kind of start with the 4 types of AP interviews. There are 4 separate, distinct types of interviews. There's a first, second, and third, and fourth, and I have materials for each of those. I will go over that. If you got an interview before then, you might want to look at like my top 10 for job interviews. This is just in general. 5 questions you should never ask. Dispositional interviews or reasoning activity interview. Group interview, the second level is when lay people, where you've got to translate educational jargon and acronyms into things that parents can understand. The third level with the principal, the fourth level with the superintendent. And so these are things you'll still have access to this shell. These are things that we'll cover in semester 5. When you're in 605, I'll do a special 1 night or 1 hour with you on this. If you're going to interview before then, here's where your material. A lot of students will send me an email. Do you have anything? I've got an interview coming up. Well, you've already got it right here. They're here for you. All right. Your South Carolina praxis information is here. I would encourage you sometimes next semester, if you're in South Carolina while you're in 604 or near the end of 604, to go ahead and take the praxis. You don't have to wait till 605. You'll get pretty much everything in 601 through 4 is what will be on the test. The test is now 5412 for South Carolina. You got to make 146. I don't think we've had anybody make below about 160. We've had everybody to pass. This particular, the study information is there in this website. It's free. It's their website. They have some study guides and some sample tests. from that, you can also get the link to the Praxis website where you can find out when and where the tests are going to be held. But I would encourage you sometime April, May to go ahead, so that when you take it, so that when you finish up this summer, you will be eligible to interview for jobs for the fall. And they'll let you interview in 605 if you've already taken the Praxis. Now, if you haven't taken the Praxis and you're still in 605 this summer for August jobs, a lot of folks won't let you interview. But if you've already passed your Praxis and you're in 605, that's why I said toward the end of 604, you need to go ahead and take it. That way you can get a leg up and be ready to interview for jobs for August. So we do have that information in your shell for you. Make sure on your competency folio, here's the example of what it should look like. Please remember, I was kind of hoping that you would all have your second round done but you need to have your second round done sometime first of the year or after, because remember, you're going to have 605 this summer. It's only 10 weeks. And so you don't leave yourself a whole round in your competence. If you just do half this semester and half in the spring, you'll have a whole round to do this summer. That's kind of tough. I would go, and you got to do the CAP and the PSYOP in 10 weeks. The CAP will take you 6, and then you'll have to knock out your PSYOP right quick. And if you have a whole round to do, I would encourage you to try to finish all 3 rounds by the end of the spring semester. And that brings me to my last thing tonight, looking at the calendar. There's been a little change in how Gardner-Webb does things. It wasn't said publicly, but I understand why. They're trying to carve out 6 weeks in the summer now. The new MBA 10 program is 6 weeks mini-mesters. We work off 5-week mini-mesters, and they need 12 weeks in the summer rather than the current 10. And so what they've done is this, and this is very important to pay attention to. We're starting back this spring a week early. Let me say that again. We're starting back a week early. Your class shells will be available on January the 6th, and we will start graduate classes on January 13th. That's a full week early in this spring. So don't show back up about the 20th thinking classes are going to start and be a week behind. Shells will be out on Monday, January the 6th. We're coming back for staff development on Saturday, January the 4th. I mean, we're not even hardly taking any time off for New Year's. We'll have to be back probably on the 2nd, getting ready for the 4th, because we're starting back a week earlier. Now, what that's going to do, we're going to end a week earlier in May, and then we're going to have the normal break and go right into summer. And so last week of classes for grad is May the 6th. Starts the last week of classes. And so commencement is a week early as well on May 9th. And so the spring semester is over. The first full week in May, the spring semester is over. And then so as you can see, these six-week classes, so we're going to start back summer school a week early on May the 20th. And then we'll be done the last week in July. And this allows them to have two 6-week mini-mesters this summer rather than the traditional. They can have the 5-week and the 6-week. Now, as we just saw, I saw something there that said 6-week. Yep, 6 weeks. So they can have 2 6s and 2 5s where we've just normally had. So they've carved out some extra time in the summer for these 6-week mini-semester programs. That's relevant to us in that you lose 1 week of your break between now and spring semester. That's another reason why I'm ending tonight. You lose 1 week. So I'm going to try to give you, as soon as you get your work done, I'm going to try to make up that week on the front side here of the holiday break, because you're going to have to come back right after the New Year's. Your shells will be posted, and you should start work on Monday, January the 6th. Your first class will be the week of the 13th. Means you should have the work done for that class. You know how that goes. So I'm trying to help make up for that week you're going to miss in January by giving you this week now in December. But please remember, don't wait and start looking about the 15th or 20th of January for your class information. You're going to be disappointed. Your feelings are going to be hurt. Now they haven't put anything. There's no big flashing sign out there that says, "Hey, we shifted things and starting a week early." It's here on when you click into Web Connect. It's here on the calendar. They figure that you'll figure it out on your own, or we'll tell you. So I can't say that enough times. Tell all your people in your groups. Tell everybody hey, classes start back. They'll be posted January 6th. Classes start the week of the 13th. We're back a week early. We'll finish a week early, but then we'll start. We'll only take a week off and be right back in summer school. So you're really on a compact schedule to try to get all this work done by the last week in July. So I just want to make you aware of that up front. Between now and then, you've got to have 3 rounds of competencies in. You've got to do the skip, the cap, and the SIOP. I've given you the template so that the SIOP shouldn't take you that long. But, it's going to be a sprint now. Once January 1st arrives, it's going to be a sprint until the last week in July, folks. The pace is going to about double for you. So I'm just warning you now. All right, I see that I've a few minutes here at the end. Again, I appreciate all of you being with us this semester. Appreciate you choosing Gardner Webb. If there's anything I can do for you in terms of jobs, doing references or writing the letters, I'm the person who will do that. I want to thank Dr. Barnes and Dr. Sumner for being with us every week. They've been a lot of support and help for me, and I appreciate that. And I thank all of you for coming. Anybody have anything for the good of the group before we leave tonight? Dr. Barnes, Dr. Sumner, we will be meeting, as we said, at Tucker Center on Saturday, January the 4th. We'll have a general session in the morning on the new APA guidelines for APA 7. Version 7, edition 7. We're going to switch to that. I don't know if we're going to switch this spring. We won't switch for any of our existing people, but I don't know if we're going to start the new spring classes or wait till the fall on that one. But we're going to cover that, and then in the afternoon we'll have our sessions. Y'all will be with me in the 603 group, and hopefully I'll have your shells ready for you by then, because the students get them the following Monday, and so. We can customize your shell to make them look like you want to, or if you got better stuff than I've got, we'll take and knock some of mine out, put some of yours in. But if nobody has anything else, I've had a great time this semester. I appreciate everybody being with us. I will see you again after the break.
All right. Same to you.
Everybody have a good holiday. Thank you.